If you grew up any time after the 1980s, you were likely taught a very specific survival rule: avoid strangers. We are conditioned from childhood to fear the unknown boogeyman waiting for us in the alley. This chart shows the relationship between homicide victims and their killers in the United States. The data reveals a jarring reality. 80 to 90% of all murders are committed by a family member, an intimate partner, or a close friend. This creates a mathematical paradox. Statistically, a person is in more physical danger sitting at home in their own living room than walking alone through a public mall. Yet our culture fixates on what sociologists call the dispositional approach. This is the assumption that people who cause harm are simply born bad. We focus on extreme anomalies, like psychopathic serial killers, and blame their actions entirely on inherent internal personality traits. If the vast majority of human harm happens at the hands of those we know, why do our media and justice systems spend so much energy hunting for a monster in the shadows? Our preoccupation with the boogeyman in the alley functions as a psychological buffer. It resolves the tension between the world we want to believe in and the statistical reality we actually live in. When we witness an atrocity, the brain's fear center, the amygdala, kicks into severe hyperactivity. It's trying to assess a threat that doesn't fit expectations. This triggers cognitive dissonance, the psychological anxiety we feel when reality conflicts with our beliefs. The realization that ordinary humans, people like us, or people we trust, are capable of terrible things is so destabilizing that the brain demands a workaround. To resolve this anxiety, we use an automatic mental shortcut known as the Fundamental Attribution Error. This is a built-in bias in how we evaluate ourselves versus how we evaluate everyone else. When we fail, we point to external circumstances, but when others do something terrible, we automatically attribute it to a permanent, unchangeable internal flaw. We apply this error to evil to create a safe distance. We blame horrific acts on a unique internal defect, like a severe mental illness, convincing ourselves that the perpetrator possesses a flaw that we do not. However, the data contradicts this mental illness hypothesis. Statistically, you are twice as likely to be physically assaulted by your neighbor than by someone living in a secure community for patients with schizophrenia. Diagnosing perpetrators with inherent dispositional flaws provides the observer with a psychological guarantee. It suggests that because we don't share that specific defect, we are structurally immune from ever committing those acts. This distancing mechanism has taken many forms throughout history. Long before modern psychology, cultures used the idea of supernatural possession to explain away bad behavior as something external to normal humanity. This logic led to trepanning, where holes were surgically drilled into the skull to cure moral corruption. Because the head is the highest point, healers believed this opening allowed the bad spirit causing the evil disposition to simply float away. By the Middle Ages, these supernatural beliefs evolved into the humorous theory. Doctors drained massive amounts of blood from patients, believing that violent or evil behavior was caused by imbalanced bodily fluids that needed to be purged. While we've abandoned bloodletting, we still apply the exact same distancing logic to the victims of modern crimes through the phenomenon of victim blaming. When a victim is harmed, we often focus on their specific choices, what they wore, where they went, or who they spoke to. By convincing ourselves that their actions caused the harm, we maintain the comforting illusion that we are safe. Whether we blame ancient demons, a killer's genetics, or a victim's outfit, society constructs these myths as a necessary psychological cushion against an unpredictable, chaotic world. Sociologists define evil as the intentional exercise of power to harm someone with less authority. This shift in perspective moves the focus away from the monster and toward the relationship between the people involved. This definition requires a situational dynamic and a specific imbalance of power. We see this exact mechanism at play in everything from the isolation tactics used in domestic abuse to the dehumanization strategies used by imperial powers against indigenous populations. This manifestation of harm is often a cultural byproduct. In the Asian Rim, for instance, there were no recorded cases of serial killing until the late 20th century, when those societies began adopting westernized individualist ideals. This suggests that the psychopathic view of humans as mere objects is a specific outcome of our social environment. We see a similar pattern in pre-colonial American cultures. While intertribal warfare certainly existed, anthropological and oral histories show no evidence of intratribal domestic violence until the introduction of individualist colonial structures. The shift toward interpersonal harm followed the shift toward a more isolated individualist worldview. Our desperate need to believe in the born monster has a steep cost. By focusing on the rare anomaly to make ourselves feel safe, we actively ignore and preserve the cultural power structures that actually generate violence every day. If society genuinely wants to reduce human suffering, we must stop hunting for boogeymen. We need to start dismantling the situations, the cultural norms, and the imbalances of power that allow harm to happen in the first place.